In this video, we're going to find out if you believe these 5 retirement myths. Coming up next on Holy Schmidt.
Holy Schmidt!
When we were children, we were told a lot of things about retirement. In fact, a lot of those things were told to us throughout our entire adult life, and many of these things are either totally false or false in most people's circumstances. And that's what we're going to talk about today. The first point is how much to save for retirement. That number, by the way, is 10%. That's what we're told. We're not told if it's 10% pre-tax or post-tax. We're just told that we need to save 10% of our income every year. And frankly, it's a good number. Not because it's the right number, but because without a number, people would not save for retirement. Let me explain. If you went back to your grandparents' era, they weren't taught to save like we're taught to save today. And undoubtedly, many of you will have been in a situation where grandma or grandpa entered financial stress as they continued to age into retirement. Why? Because many of them thought that they were going to pass away by age 70, and now they're running at life at age 80 or 90. Nobody else was doing it, so they weren't doing it either. They were spending it as fast as it was coming in, but that's just the way that it was. The reason that 10% isn't the right number, or potentially isn't the right number, is because at age 22, you don't know what you're going to be spending or what your life is going to look like at age 62. You're given this number. This is the number that you keep putting away in your 401k, 10%, and at the age of retirement, you have a nest egg there. What are you going to do with it? You apply one of the other rules, like the 4% rule or the annuity rule, etc., to take that from where you are now all the way into, hopefully, a very long and happy and healthy retirement. But at the end of that time, you're either going to be short or you're going to be ahead. You're not going to land your retirement on a dime. For some people, 10% isn't nearly enough. Other people could live on 5%. So spend some time on this one, try to figure out what your retirement might look like, and work backwards from there. Point 2 is that you can't count on Social Security. It's going to fail. There's no doubt that Social Security has struggled, and many politicians have dropped the ball on this. But there is also a lot of information out there that's just not correct, and the SSA just doesn't correct information that's out there. That's not what they do. In fact, most government agencies don't address rumors, innuendos, and inaccuracies unless they have no choice. So let's talk about the big issue, and let's talk about the reality of it. The big issue is that the trust is running a surplus, but there's a slow drip decline of that surplus, and that surplus is due to end in 2034. But that assumes that nothing is done and the numbers don't change. But here's how they could change. First, they could change negatively because people may be retiring earlier. They lost their job and they decided to retire, which is going to put pressure on the trust. Massive inflation means the cost of living adjustment is going up, and with a big COLA adjustment, the trust is going to run out faster. If the SSA increases your payment by 6 to 8%, as seems likely for 2022, they're going to do it with funds that are invested at 2 to 3%, namely U.S. Treasuries. That's what the SSA does with the funds. They invest them in low-yielding, ultra-safe U.S. Treasuries. The next point that reduces the pressure on the trust is the negative impact of the pandemic on the elderly population. There's probably not much more to say about this point. Still, the math is the math, and 2034 is only 12 years away. Something does need to be done. What most likely will happen will be a modest increase in the Social Security tax. This is the most likely outcome because there are 65 million voting Americans, plus the family that worships them. And those approaching retirement already have their Social Security statements telling them what their projected Social Security payment is going to be. And there's no little asterisk at the bottom that says, assuming the trust still is in the black. This is a political hot potato, no doubt, but one of the presidents, either the current president or one of the next 3, has to fix it. So basically, they have 12 years to get the legislation right. Myth number 3 is that you get to choose when you retire. Let me begin by saying that it is easier to stay employed now than it has been for the last 30 years, because we are running 3.6 unemployment, as of April anyway. Because of this, it's also easier to find work now if someone finds themselves unemployed. But we are in what's called a gig economy. Gig economy simply means that someone is hired either for a particular job or for a certain period of time. So if someone finds themselves unemployed from their traditional job, they can get another job, but they're going to be spending part of their time finding that job, part of that time working the job, and part of their time finding the next job. All fine and manageable, of course. But if you get into your 60s and 70s and this is what you want, the other factor that you need to consider is that your health may get in the way. Disability, ailments, lack of energy, they're all there as you get older. Although, as many of you know, I'm close to someone who's 92, who has more energy than most people. He's sharp as a tack, and he loves to debate politics. He usually wins, in fact. Still, he is not representative of the broader population. So remember the big three when it comes to working as long as you want: your health, your energy, and the ideal job. These are the things that can slow you down. Myth number 4 is that you're going to live in the same house your entire life. I grew up in the Midwest in a house just outside of Chicago. It was a pretty typical house. It was a contemporary home. It had wood stairs that doubled back as the stairs went up, and it was in a rural area, so it had a lot of land that needed upkeep. As my parents got older, they had a hard time navigating the stairs. Knees, vertigo, balance, it was all there. Not to mention the outside, which was many acres of land that needed upkeep. So be honest and ask yourself if you will still be able to get up and down those stairs and maintain the lawn as you get older. If the answer is no, it's better to realize that now than suddenly when it's time to move because you have no other choice. Now let's say instead you live in a 3-bedroom condo. Great, you don't have to deal with stairs or upkeep of the outside. But what about the weather? Will you be okay with the weather in 20 or 30 years? If you're from the Midwest, you know that things get very cold in the winter and very hot in the summer. What happens if your children move to another state? Are you going to stay in your home, or are you going to move and follow your kids? What if you need regular medical assistance, routine meal preparation? Are you in the right home for that? Probably not. So consider all of those factors when you think about your home now, and be flexible because at some point you may not be living there, and that's okay. Myth number 5 is that your spending in retirement will be 80% of your last year's income. This one was developed on the back of a napkin decades ago, and it has become the standard for what people think about when they think about how they spend in retirement. But how can someone really know that? During your working years, you have a lot of expenses that don't occur in retirement, far more than 20% in most cases. First, you have your 401k. Then you have a mortgage. Oftentimes your mortgage is paid off. If you're funding your children's college education, that's done. You have higher taxes. You have clothes for work. Many people have a new car every 3 or 4 years. You get the point. While 80% may or may not be the right number, oftentimes it's much lower than that. It depends on where you sit on the S-curve. For those of you who've watched my other videos, you'll know what the S-curve is. It's the Schmidt curve. For those of you who haven't seen it before, I'll include a link in the description below, which will take you to a video that will outline it for you. But in a nutshell, the S-curve talks about how people spend money in retirement, at least how they should spend money in retirement. On the far left of the S-curve, people spend funds on health and safety. Next comes comfort. Then comes enjoyment. Then comes adventure, and then the rock and roll lifestyle. And as you move from left to right, what happens is the amount that you spend goes up dramatically. It costs far less to live a healthy and safe life than it does to live the life of a rock star. So health and safety could be 40%, it could be 30%. It depends on a lot of factors. But living a rock and roll lifestyle could also be 300%, 400%, 4,000%, depending on what you want in your rock and roll life. If you know someone who needs this information, please hit the forward button below so they can get information on something that's probably on their mind even right now. Also, check out this video on what to do if you have no money saved for retirement and it's time. This is Jeff Schmidt. Thanks for watching.